What's going on, free MMO Station? My name is Skylent, and today I'm going to show you my first impressions. We're just going to do a little sneak peek here at a new cross-platform MMORPG called AdventureQuest 3D.
FreeMMOStation.com.
Jumping into the video, I just want to say this is not going to be a usual first impression. Normally, if you guys are subscribers, you understand, or you know, that I go into these as, very casual sort of experiences. I mean, it's a first impression. It's not a full review. Sometimes I go a little bit more in depth, sometimes I don't, but basically, the gist of it is pretty much instantaneously and very honestly, I'll express if I like or dislike something. However, I did not get to play this game on my own free time. It was more of a guided walkthrough, thanks to Ardix, very much. So I was kind of like, my hand was held through this experience, and I'm not going to really be able to review or critique too much of the game. However, this is going to be more of like a spotlight of a lot of the features, and this is going to be really me just showing off the game. It's really more of a preview kind of thing. Just get to, listing off some features and stuffs and showing you my recorded gameplay of AdventureQuest 3D. Woo! Okay, so I did, well, because of this walkthrough, I did actually get to glean a little bit more information than I normally would have in a first impression, which is a good thing. However, I want to say that there is going to be a little bit of bias, because that's just how walkthrough first impressions are, okay? I get a little bit of extra information than I normally would have, and my previous biases combined with my new bias of, getting all buddy with Ardix and, having, like the experience of, like, a developer or GM or something talking to you, and they're showing you the really cool stuff instantaneously, they're giving you the good gear so you can really participate in the game. It just creates a bias. So that was, this experience. Just want to say that right out of the gate, but with that, hopefully you guys will actually have a better experience of me previewing this. And it's instead of a lot of the times in first impressions, I start the game and like 5 minutes in, I'm like, the fuck is this? But with AdventureQuest 3D, because it was a walkthrough, and because I didn't actually really understand this game until I went through this walkthrough experience, I think that honestly, this is probably for the best. It really is, probably because of how the game advertises itself. Normally, I'm somebody who plays esport type of games. I play Guild Wars 2, PvP, I've got, League of Legends, Overwatch. I play a lot of really competitive games, and that goes for MMOs as well, like Terra, Endgame, stuff like that. I play some pretty serious games, and I play them seriously. AdventureQuest, though, is not that kind of game. So if I just went into this without a guided walkthrough, I would have missed a lot. So hopefully you guys can understand when I mean, and I mean this honestly, that AdventureQuest 3D actually has a lot going for it, even though it seems really childish and cartoon. And in fact, maybe it's because of that that the game will do so well if you can actually give it a chance. And I'm basically talking to people who are my age, who have my similar biases, who are looking for a really mature MMO generally, like Black Desert or Blade and Soul maybe. You might kind of tune away from games like this or maybe Albion Online. Both games are going to be completely cross-platform, and they do have a cartoony look. Albion Online, though, mechanically is going to be a very sort of sophisticated, grindy, sandbox sort of economy-based game, where AdventureQuest 3D is going to be, it's a theme park MMO. Absolutely, it is a theme park MMO. It is going to be kind of linear, and it's going to be kind of usual in a lot of the ways that MMOs generally are. So when you jump into the game, or if I jumped into the game before the walkthrough, just for a second, I was like, okay, yeah, what's new about this game? But given the history, since I was literally force-fed the history of AdventureQuest, and I got to learn about the worlds, the setting, some sort of like the development process of the game, and what kind of game this is, it kind of opened my eyes. And I mean, like literally not just to this game, but to different kinds of games as well, games that I normally would not play, because of how this game is created. Now, I mentioned that I play Guild Wars 2, and I think we, what, 4 minutes already just sort of like excusing myself for this first impression, but no, I think it's really important because a lot of people are going to come into this game with a certain mindset, and I kind of want to break that mindset because it was literally broken for me. So, earlier I said I play Guild Wars 2. I like Guild Wars 2 a lot. And one reason why I like Guild Wars 2 a lot, or liked it back when they did it, actually, was the seasonal events. Well, there was more than seasonal events. It was like every month, or at least every other month, there would be an update, and it would literally change the game. Like, sometimes entire cities were destroyed, or like a floating freaking city would come in, and you could do all these crazy jumping puzzles and do all these little mini games, and it was amazing. It was more than just seasonal events. It was called a living story. It was really awesome. They kind of extremely toned down on it, so it's not as fun anymore. But that's kind of what AdventureQuest is, apparently. Like, all these MMOs, all these different kinds of games are still being consistently updated. They have weekly updates, they have weekly events, and weekly sort of expansions to these games. And so even though they seem incredibly childish, cartoon, I will admit it, that's just what they look like first impressions. When you get into the game and you actually kind of become, like, you join the community, that community is the game. I mean, that's kind of how MMOs are anyways. When you go back to the roots, it's the community. It's the massively multiplayer component to the RPG. So yeah, that's how these games work. Even though the combat is incredibly simplistic, yes, some of these monsters and the graphics are really childish. There's literally a dragon chicken. It's definitely comical. I guess you can kind of see this game as a parody, right? But when you actually play the game, you're playing with a community, and that is no parody. That is incredibly serious. In fact, probably more serious than most MMOs. And with weekly updates, you know, and this constant update, like the story expansion, all these silly, fun events that the GMs partake in with the players, it just, like, seriously, not many MMOs do that. And it's really surprising that a game that at first glance is just some, well, very simplistic, childish game actually is more serious. You know, the developers are more serious about their title, their MMO experience, than some of these other, you know, painted serious games. So I'm not saying that all MMOs pretend to be serious or whatever, or all childish games are just simply childish. AdventureQuest is the best childish, cartoony looking game. I don't know, man. I don't know. I play a lot of these games, but it turns out that I still have a lot to learn. And I want to say, you know, for those of you who watch the Free MMO Station, MMO Huts, all these other different channels, who play a lot of games just like me, I want to say that I want to start the first impression by just breaking your mind, blowing your mind, really, breaking your biases, and say that this game has more to offer than maybe what you are expecting. You know, from how it looks, how it seemingly plays in the trailer, there's definitely more to it with the community and the updates with the developers, okay? So in saying that, it's kind of hard to actually show it, right? So what you're seeing on this footage here, yeah, it's just pretty basic combat. I really tried to break the game too. I really tried to move as much as possible, do as many commands as possible. Like I was serious. I was like basically testing this game for any weaknesses, and there definitely is some, absolutely. So if you're on PC, you are going to have a little bit of discomfort, especially when trying to aim around if you normally are used to action combat like in Guild Wars 2 or in Terra. Your mouse is going to fly off the screen, etc., etc. Seems like the game is really being made for mobile first, and that's kind of what I was kind of told. It's really meant for mobile. You know, at the beginning, it's going to be later, you know, fixed and kind of made a little bit easier, you know, quality of life stuff for PC next. But that's just kind of how, whenever you make a cross-platform game, you got to do it for the weakest, the hardest device first. And that's going to be mobile. You know, the controls and everything. It's got to work on mobile first because it's so hard to update it and maintain it and just make it work in the first place. So, you know, you just got to keep that in mind, and that's kind of why they went with the art style that they did and everything, but I think it really fits the AdventureQuest sort of theme. I played like the first AdventureQuest so long ago. I thought it was really cheesy, and I never really got into it, and I'm kind of feel like I missed out on something, apparently, because like all these different AdventureQuests are still being consistently updated. And I don't know, you see that it's still pretty popular. I mean, it's doing decent, better than some games, probably like WildStar. You know, as such production value as WildStar, you'd think it would be doing better, but no, it's not. It's not always about the game. A game could be good, and a game could be cheesy, but it doesn't matter whether it is good or bad. It's the community that really makes an MMO. So if you give the community tools, or at least, you know, actually give them content consistently, then it's going to be a great game. And that's kind of what EverQuest 3D is going to be. It's really more of a platform to deliver awesome content consistently, so the GMs can really play with the players, and the players can really marvel at the GM's awesomeness, and the developers, you know, their new content. That's really what it is. That's the feeling I was given. But let's talk about some of the gameplay. You guys probably want to know what it's about. I mean, it's really pretty usual. If you played a mobile MMO, you kind of understand how it plays. It's lots of tiny, tiny rooms versus a giant open world. So if you want a giant open world MMORPG on mobile, you're probably going to have to wait for Final Fantasy XI. And I have not played any, like even 2D, like action RPG-ish, you know, like top-down or isometric games. They still use lots and lots of tiny rooms because mobile devices generally don't have a lot of memory. So they can't really hold a lot of, you know, stuff or big rooms. So you're not going to be playing with too many players in any given instance. You aren't going to be in any giant instance whatsoever. Everything's going to feel like little tiny rooms all interconnected. However, the game definitely feels populated. Like, I mean, because of how it's designed, how it works. Like, I mean, there's lots of little tiny rooms, but I don't think there's really any room, I mean, there's not many at least, and I didn't get to experience any myself, that are completely isolated. Now, I was told that there will be dungeons where you just play with your party, so similar to how it works in World of Warcraft, but for the most part, all these little instanced rooms, it's really just kind of loading breaks. That's what I mean by that. So yeah, you're not gonna be able to see far off in the distance and, you know, from Orgrimmar to Stormwind or anything like that. I mean, you couldn't really do that in World of Warcraft. Anyways, you're not gonna be getting any expansive vistas, but I mean, it works for what it is, especially if you consider the mobile market and how it plays on mobile. But let's go into combat. Okay, so you see that it looks cartoony, and there's not too much depth with the map making, and I will say that the physics aren't exactly, you know, super sophisticated or anything. We're not going to get any Dragon Nest or Vindictus here, but what we do have, well, okay, what we do have is usual tab targeting combat, completely usual. Pseudo standstill, kind of, sort of. I was able to move around and do some attacks, but for the most part, it was pretty sticky, and it doesn't have a combo sort of thing going on. Like, it has no combos whatsoever, really. Maybe there might be some combos with later abilities and stuff, or maybe there might be some combos that you might want to do with other players, sort of, but not really. Like, really, it's not a system that was thought out and put into the game. So overall combat, incredibly bare bones and simple and average. But it's like the game isn't really meant like that. It's kind of hard to describe. Like, I mean, we actually got to go and fight the dragon chicken, the Dricken. It was cute. It was fun. It was basically, it was just like an HP sponge. So it just had a bunch of HP and it hit hard. Yeah, absolutely. But it didn't have anything like Guild Wars 2 open world bosses where there's like, you know, waves you got to jump over, you have to dodge like giant AoE, you know, attacks, you have to move out of certain areas because there's poison or something. You know, you're not going to have any of those skill shots to evade or, you know, AoEs and stuff. Like, it's just not like that. Like, the game is just not designed like that. Like, for the most part, it is, I guess, if you've ever played EverQuest or EverQuest 2, you know, like if you've ever played any of the older games, like kind of before WoW or just as WoW came out, then maybe you know what I'm talking about, but it's like that kind of gameplay. So this is really, in a way, old school, but at the same time, it looks cute and cartoony, and I think it'd be a really good game for kids to start out with. But at the same time, guys, remember, it's really more of a community thing. Even though the combat itself isn't challenging at any point with like 1v1 monsters, but I will say that there were some situations where even with a GM, like we were kind of you know, having trouble-ish, especially with the Dricken. So there is going to be challenging content. It's just not going to be mechanically challenging, and I don't think strategically challenging. It's really more about tactics, you know, where to position and maybe like the rotation of abilities that you use. But again, there's not like a combo system. You're not gonna be mechanically challenged in this game because remember, meant for mobile devices. And it's still kind of a cute, cartoony parody / game. It's really meant for humor. It's really meant for the fun of it, and kind of to follow like the trailing story that they're gonna leave, you know, little breadcrumbs every week, and they're gonna update the game. It's like that. It's kind of hard to say. Like, honestly, guys, if I just went into this as a usual first impression, I probably would have shit on the game, and it's kind of sad that I do that so often, actually. A lot of games, it's really hard to give first impressions, and I will, you know, condemn this game for that it's so hard to express itself, like what kind of MMO it really is, that it's a social MMO. And MapleStory is the same way, actually. MapleStory is a social MMO. It's like its combat is grindy, it's simple, it's cartoony, chibi, but it's really focused on the community events and stuff like that. And that's what this game is, too. It's a community MMO. And I feel like there should probably be some genre that these MMOs can kind of tie themselves into so it helps sell them. But AdventureQuest 3D is kind of like advertising itself as a child-friendly kind of kiddish MMO. At least that's what I'm seeing from the trailers and the website. And I mean, that's what it looks like, but there's definitely more to it. And I can definitely see why some people are nostalgic over the EverQuest series of games, or why, you know, full-grown adults, very sophisticated adults, people who have played other MMOs like myself, might want to jump into this game. And I really do. I definitely think it might actually have a spot on my tablets. Because it will be on iOS and Android. I think that I might play this and actually enjoy the consistent stream of updates, because, I mean, that's what the game is. Lots of updates, lots of fun little events, and I've honestly find myself enjoying those moments in MMOs more than just the raw combat. I did not buy Black Desert, because even though its raw combat is literally the best in any MMO I've played, more than most action RPGs, actually, it doesn't have much of a community event kind of thing. Guild Wars 2 had some, and as soon as they stopped, I stopped playing it. And so, you know, that's what I actually started enjoying with MMOs. And I think this game, even though I guess on the face value of this game, Like, what does it have to offer that other MMOs haven't done? And it's the fact that, well, technically nothing. It's pretty usual in ways, but there's heart and soul beneath that surface, absolutely. And I think that's something that I wish that I had more time to sort of like dive into with a lot of other games. I wish we had, I don't know, man, if we had like 100 million billion views every video, we could maybe do that, but it's hard to. I'm glad, though, to have the opportunity to have this walkthrough and just kind of show off a little bit of the game and just talk about it, and hopefully I can convince you guys to try it just a little bit. Again, remember, there is some bias. There is some bias, but then again, there was a lot of bias against this game, too. So I really wanted to elucidate, I really wanted to explain that, and hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from after this rant. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Skylent for Free MMO Station. Didn't talk too much about the game, the classes, armor, stuff like that, because in the end, it is actually pretty usual, and you can kind of guesstimate. There will be lots of classes, though. I assume there's going to be lots of content, but then again, it's going to be rather usual. However, for mobile games, I don't know. It might do very, very well. I think it's going to be pretty big in the West. But thanks so much for watching, and we will see you again next time, yeah? Okay, I'm Skylent with Free MMO Station. Bye-bye.